Hey everybody, Lloyd and I here with a little Stadia update. This one is all about Cyberpunk 2077. We all know that the game was delayed earlier this year in order to make sure that it was the game that we all are looking forward to. They said that Night City was running really well, but they wanted to add that last bit of polish, and so they decided to delay it until September 17th. And now it looks like it is getting another delay. This one is just for the Stadia version, and I know that there's a lot of people who are talking about this right now. So Lloyd and I decided that we wanted to talk about it. If this is the kind of video that you like, make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell so that you get notified every time we post something new. All right, Lloyd, let's talk about this. What are
All
your
right.
initial impressions of this particular bit of news?
Well, a little bit of disappointment. I was hoping that this would be the first like really big AAA game that was going to be a simultaneous release across console, PC, and Stadia. Turns out that's not the case. I wasn't sure if I was going to play it on Stadia anyway, because I have a super cheap pre-order on PlayStation 4, and I might just play it there because it's a $40 copy of the game instead of $80 for the Stadia version. But then I was like thinking about it. It's like, well, Stadia takes advantage of some of the newer features. Maybe I'd get it on Stadia instead. And I was kind of having this like little battle with myself. I guess this solves that. I don't have to have a battle anymore. I'll just play it on PlayStation 4 and then maybe pick it up down the road on Stadia. So I'm disappointed, but I'm not really angry. Like it seems some people are.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. There's a lot of I posted a tweet earlier saying that there's a lot of vitriol out there, and I didn't quite understand. Well, okay, that's not true. I understand why that people are irritated by this, because if you go to the actual website, it says launching September 17th, and then it lists the it lists right underneath that the platforms that it's going to be on, and Stadia is listed there. So I can understand why people would say, well, you just yanked the rug out from under us, and that's not cool. So I can understand that confusion. But for people to be upset that it got delayed, this happens like every single time that any game gets delayed, is people are like, well, I want it now. And you know what? I want to play the game right now too.
Sure.
But I would rather wait and get a good version of the game than a very hastily made port of the game. Although I will say this, they started development on Cyberpunk 2077, I think, in 2015. So it's been quite a while now.
Sounds about
And
right. Yeah.
yeah, Stadia has only been around for less than 18 months at this point. And honestly, yeah, I'm sure that there's some devs that have had, had their hands on it for longer than that. But for the most part, it has been, it's a very, very new platform. And because it's such a new platform, it takes time to port something. So even though, like Lloyd said, he was looking forward to having a game that was day and date with the other platforms, this is still a port and not something that was written from the ground up with Google Stadia in mind. And because of that, it's going to take more time to get things right, because ports introduce a whole lot of hoops that developers have to jump through.
Yeah, I agree. It's as I said, it's disappointing, but I think what was happening is CD Projekt Red was up against another possible delay. Maybe COVID was getting in the way. Maybe they're having some issues, and they're like, okay, well, we delayed it once. We don't want to delay it again. But if we push the Stadia version out a couple months, we could take all of our time. The people that are working on the Stadia port can make sure to crunch and get everything running on all the other platforms. And then in a few months, we will push it out on Stadia. Disappointing, as we've all said, but we're used to this as Nintendo podcasters, because this is what's been happening on the Nintendo Switch since day one, where a cross-platform game would be out on PS4 and Xbox, and then 6 months later it would come out on the Switch, and the other ones would be on sale, and then the Switch version would be full price. And there's all the articles, why are we paying full price for an old game, blah 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 blah. That's been kind of the talk forever, because of the way that porting has happened, and it looks like just Stadia is now having some of those same issues. Hopefully this isn't the sign of the future of Stadia, where it's always going to be like this. I'm hopeful that that won't be the case. But it just seems like Cyberpunk 2077 is such a huge game. Getting it working the same way across 5 different platforms, I can't imagine the amount of work that it takes to do that. So it doesn't surprise me that one of the dominoes fell, and it didn't. Thankfully, it didn't knock all the other dominoes down, but one of them fell, and that's sad. But I'd rather have them delay it a couple months and have it be a fantastic version of Cyberpunk 2077 than get a game that just doesn't perform right at launch.
Right. And, you said something that I thought was very interesting a moment ago, that they took a bunch, or you're proposing that possibly they took a bunch of people who were working on the Stadia version to bring them in and say, hey, let's focus on getting these other platforms ready first. And I know that people are going to hear that and they're going to say, well, why is Stadia getting treated like a second-class citizen or whatever? And the reason is because there are so many more people who are going to buy this on Xbox, on PlayStation, on PC, than are going to buy it on Stadia. And while I am going to buy it on Stadia, and I'm fine not playing it right away when it comes out, I never pre-order it, I'm fine playing it on Stadia. I also understand that there's a lot of people out there who want to play this game as soon as they possibly can. And if that means that they need to play it on some other platform, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. And for a company to say, well, let's just delay it so that we don't make any money until it finally comes out, or we can ship it on other platforms to get some capital in so that we can keep running. I understand that that a lot of these companies that are making video games, like, everybody thinks that they are just raking in the dough like crazy, and that might be true for giant publishers. But for the devs, usually they are working project to project and barely scraping things together in order to fund the next thing that they're doing. And they may be at the end of their rope, running out of money in order to make the next thing. Or maybe they needed to take some extra time to swim around in their Witcher 3 money before they shipped Cyberpunk 2077 on Google Stadia. Go ahead.
I was going to say something interesting. Like, this came out as part of a press release announcing that they've partnered with the Agora Group to do some custom advertising. So a far-reaching advertising campaign. There's a part of the press release that says the first part of the campaign is scheduled for September. The game comes out September 17th. So that makes sense. And it says, well, the second part is focused on post-launch support and will take place in November of 2020. So maybe that is the window they're targeting for the Stadia version. Maybe it's like, okay, well, we're going to do the advertising for the additional post-launch stuff and Stadia in November. So maybe it won't be a 3-month delay, but it's possible. They say by the end of the year, between September 17th and December 31st, there's a lot of time where the game could come out. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
I've also seen people talking about this online and saying things like, do you think that they're doing this so that they can delay Stadia, so that they can use the Stadia 2.0 hardware in order to make the Stadia version more in lines with what you'll see on the PS5 and Xbox Series X? And I think that's certainly a possibility. But I've seen this happen, especially as a Nintendo content creator, so many times, where people make the same mistake where they speculate on things, which is totally fine to speculate on things because it is fun to speculate and prognosticate about what is going to happen. It's fun. That's one of the reasons why Lloyd and I do this kind of stuff. But people speculate on things, and then somehow that speculation turns into an expectation. And even though the company in question has never said anything about that, suddenly the publisher, creator, developer doesn't deliver on these expectations that they never promised, and then everybody gets mad at them. And the best example that I think I can give is the Netflix of gaming thing that happened with Google Stadia. Google never said that Stadia was the Netflix of gaming. That was people prognosticating and speculating on it. And what happened is everybody then expected it. And when Google didn't give them what we expected, even though they never said that they would, people got mad. And that is really one of the big hurdles that Stadia had stumbled over. And honestly, I really don't think that is their fault.
No. And if when the news comes out when it's coming, and if we find out that it's coming out the same date as the free upgrade for Xbox Series X, which gives you the new console features, and it comes out at the same time as the PlayStation 5 sometime in November, December, whenever those consoles hit, then maybe that is the case. Maybe that's why they delayed it, because they wanted to give you the best looking version, but they didn't want to have the best looking version out months early before these new consoles. Maybe that is the 3D chess that they're playing to figure out the best way to market their game. I find that highly unlikely, but if that's the case, I'll be more than happy, because I'll play it early on PlayStation, and then in a few months I'll want to pick it up on Stadia just to experience that world in higher fidelity with better graphics and ray trace lighting and all this other crazy stuff that is possible on the newer version of the Stadia hardware, if they are going to be using that newer version of the Stadia hardware.
Yeah. And, I'll say, I mentioned a moment ago that was the Netflix of gaming scenario that I was talking about for Google Stadia. I said, that's really not Google's fault that happened. Mm-hmm. And while I still stand by that, somebody on Twitter said to me earlier, speculation fills the void left by a lack of communication. That's definitely what happens with Google Stadia. They've been really tight-lipped about things. And I think that it would be best for Google Stadia, even though this isn't really them making this decision. This is CD Projekt Red making this decision. I think what would be best for Stadia as a platform, and maybe the Stadia sales of Cyberpunk 2077, would be for whoever's the publisher developer to say, hey, this is the reason why we're delaying the Stadia version of the game, because of these things. We want to make it the best thing for you. And if they just tell people that, then I think a lot of the anger and vitriol that's out there some of the anger and vitriol that's out there would melt away, because there's some people who just have to be mad.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if Google can get in front of it, or CD Projekt Red, or someone, Agora, their marketing company, can get in front of the reasons why and say, no, we're not using next gen hardware, or yes, we are using next gen hardware, or we're making it look as good as it will on next gen consoles, or we're not. Like, just get in front of that. You're not going to get the whole next Netflix of gaming stuff again, like we've had previously on Stadia. So hopefully, maybe we'll get the next press release from Google says, unfortunately, the game has been delayed, but these are all the features you're going to get if you play it on Google Stadia, and it's going to be coming as soon as possible after the release of the other consoles. Just get out in front of a potential news tsunami would be a really good thing for Google to do.
Right. And the last thing that I want to say before we get out of here is, I'm sure that they've received 1,000 tweets today asking, so when is the actual launch date? If they knew when it was, they would have put it in this press release. So asking them isn't going to do anybody any good. I'm sure that there will be people who leave in a comment in the comment section down below. So when is it coming? We don't know either. Nobody knows when it's coming. The biggest mistake that I have seen publishers do in the past, Square Enix, I'm looking directly at you, is they have given a date and they've not been able to meet that date, and that just ticks people off. So you're better off just not mentioning a date at all and being, all right, here we go. And look, we're looking at it right now. They told us September 17th. Although I feel like, and Lloyd, maybe I'm wrong about this, I feel like I remember them not confirming that the Stadia version was going to be day and date ever. And a lot of people just assumed it. And I could be wrong.
They've never said, but the Stadia version's always been listed like not coming later for Stadia. It was always listed as these are the consoles we're launching on. So that's where people made that assumption, and that's a fair assumption.
It is,
based on the information that we had.
Yeah. All right. If you found this video useful, if you enjoyed the rantings of Bill and Lloyd, make sure that you hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you click on the subscribe and the bell and all of the other YouTube stuff. And of course, follow us on social media. I'm at Run Jump Stomp. Lloyd, where can they find your stuff on Twitter?
You can find me at Dasme on Twitter, DASME.
Bye, everybody.
Later.